I know you're going to tell me that you've never owned a tomahawk and you never plan to own a tomahawk. But I'd like to give you some tomahawk wisdom that I learned when I was a young man. When I was young, I threw tomahawk, and I got reasonably good in the late 1970s. Good enough to go to state throwing a tomahawk. That's right, state level throwing. Never won, but with that in mind, one of the contests we were down there throwing, and after we had went through the contest, people were just throwing for enjoyment then. Maybe a dozen plus were there. And again, there was probably two gentlemen off to the side that were throwing as well as we were. They were about 65 to 70. They were getting up there in age and still throwing a tomahawk. And as they both threw at a target, one target, neither one had their spin right, and they just bounced off the target. And they were laying on the ground. They walked up and they picked up the tomahawks, and guess what? One of them said, "Wait a minute, that's my tomahawk. You got mine." The guy said, "No, this is my tomahawk." And they got to arguing about it enough that I thought I better intervene. So I walked over there and tried to be the peacemaker and said, "Let me look at each tomahawk." I did look for some way to identify it of which one was which, and I couldn't. They were identical tomahawks made by the same manufacturer, and there was no discernible difference between either one of them. The field officer came up, same thing. He looked it all over, and he could not figure out any difference between them. Finally, the guy that was demanding that the other guy give him back his tomahawk got the tomahawk he wanted. Now the other guy's mad because he had to give away what he thought was his tomahawk. So no matter what we did, we were going to lose in that confrontation. But that was a good indication for me. From then on, I took my shaft, you change them once in a while because you will break a handle once in a while, and I drilled out a hole in the bottom. You can hang it up on a wall that way, but it also identifies it as yours. I then took those little stickers that you put on a letter, your name and address, put it on there and epoxied it. So there's no question between those two, it's a good indication that it's my tomahawk, my tomahawk. Taking the next step, I did that with my tools. I marked my tools in numerous ways. I marked my traps. Anything I have, I try to put a mark or some kind of identifying agent on there that says it's mine. If nothing else, 3 little black marks from a magic marker, just littlest things that you wouldn't really notice, but it says it's mine. It says it's mine if you'd get into some kind of confrontation. And I'll finish it with this. I walked into Walmart one day, and as I walked in, the door beeped, saying there was a unregistered, or I was either stealing. It would be hard to steal if you're walking into the building, but it beeped on me. So they came over and checked it out, and they found it was my billfold. And unbeknownst to me, there was a chip inside it. I didn't know it. It had been deactivated when I bought it. But then, sometime later, months later, they reactivated that chip. And for pots and pans, it was some kind of cookware that it was registered to, so there was no question it wasn't this. But at the same time, it could have got me into a rock and a hard place. Now, I had taken leather crafting, and so I had stapled and stamped on my name on the leather billfold that I bought there. It's pretty hard to do that in a store, out there, making your name. So I had that as an ID for my billfold. But whether you, do it for your tools, billfold, all kinds of items that you may have with you, or for sure if you have them in your car and law enforcement would stop, rather than to question, okay, where did you get it, or why do you have that, are you sure you didn't steal it, that type of thing, you've got an ID on it. That's a pretty good indication that it must be yours. Just trying to keep you safe and learn from the tomahawk so you don't have to go through anything like that yourself. You guys have a good night.